What's up, guys? So another video on the CRV. So when I first picked this up, it had been sitting for years and years, and the guy I got it from said the power steering just stopped working. So I drove it home with no power steering, and so I've looked into that a little bit, and at first inspection, the fluid that was in it was just super black, super dark. And so I started out by just removing all the old fluid from the reservoir, dumping some fresh fluid in it just to see if that would maybe help. It didn't, but I did notice that once I park it for a couple days, when I first started up, for about a quarter of a revolution, maybe a half of a revolution of the steering wheel, I've got power steering, but then it goes away. The pump is pretty noisy, but when I did the fluid swap, I did notice something that I think is the culprit. But it's super hot out here right now, so I'm gonna get that thing pulled in the garage and I'll show you what I've got. So I'm gonna start it up real quick. It's been sitting for a week or so. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So when it first starts, you can kind of hear it there. Oh, now I don't have it. Now I can't do it with the finger. Ugh. So it's like I'm getting just a little tiny assist, and you can hear the pump. Okay, so power steering reservoir. If we look down in there, see if I can get a light shining through it, and I can't. So it's kind of hard to tell with the reflection, but even with some new fluid in there, the fluid still looks pretty gross because I didn't flush out the entire system. I just changed what was in the reservoir. But I think what the issue is the reservoir itself. So I ordered a new reservoir. This is just an aftermarket reservoir. And if you look down in here, you can see how it kind of looks a little foggy at the bottom. It's because there's a super fine mesh screen down on the bottom. And I think that screen is just plugged up and blocked up. Once it sits for a couple days, or maybe even overnight, haven't started driving this yet, but enough fluid is able to get down to the pump. But then the first little bit of travel of this steering rack, it's out of fluid, and so it's starving the pump. All right, so I've just got a turkey baster here. I'm gonna try to get some of this partial fluid out of here. Half good, half bad. I'm making a mess. So I've got the majority of the fluid out of the reservoir, and you can see just how nasty this fluid is. So I'm gonna see if I can spend a little more time sucking the rest of that out of there so I don't make a huge mess when I pull the hoses off of it. So something interesting about this original reservoir is you can see there's like an inner chamber. And if you look down in there, you can see, I don't know if that's supposed to be like a filter, or you can see here on the bottom of the screen, there's like a slit. So it allows fluid to go out into the outer part of this reservoir. But you can see, I think whatever all that gunk is down there is what's preventing the fluid from actually flowing. Okay, so I got the old reservoir off, but when I look down in here, so it's not as bad as I thought, but there definitely is a screen down in there. See some of the gunk stuck in the screen down there at the bottom. Probably could have cleaned this one up, but I didn't know. I didn't want to spend the time to get all the mess and then this not be salvageable and then have this stuck in my garage while I waited for a part. So I just went ahead and ordered the replacement. The new reservoir comes with two caps, one here and one here. So this is your supply line that goes to the low pressure side of your pump. This is your return line coming back to the reservoir. And if you're replacing the reservoir, you want to leave this cap on there if you're planning on flushing all of the fluid through the system. So made some more mess. I'm gonna go ahead and hook up that side. So on the return side, the larger cap that was on the reservoir, I put over that because it was actually starting to drip. But to actually flush the system, I need to get a smaller tube that will fit inside of this return line, just so I can kind of route it out so I can drain the system. So, okay, so I've got a little catch bottle here. Whatever diameter tubing this is just what I usually use to bleed brakes. It was a little too small a diameter to fit inside of this return line from the power steering pump. So I just wrapped it with a bunch of electrical tape just to build up the diameter. Got it shoved in there. Hose clamp is on and tight. And so this will be the catch can for all of the old fluid. I don't know if you can tell, but I do have the vehicle, the front end jacked up. Both front wheels are off the ground. I'm gonna fill my reservoir all the way to the top, and then just using, I'm not gonna start the engine. I am going to turn the key to the on position just so it unlocks the steering wheel, and that should push old fluid out. I'll continue doing that until I see clear, clean fluid coming out of this line. As far as fluid goes, everything I've read said only use Honda fluid. There are other manufacturers that offer power steering fluid for Asian vehicles. I found from my local dealer, this stuff is about $5 for a 12-ounce bottle. Ordering it on Amazon, which I will put a link down below, but it's about $7 or $8 per bottle. A bottle of power steering fluid and Asian power steering fluid from like Walmart is like $7. So just buy the real stuff from Honda. Okay, so I was trying the turn the wheel back and forth method, but I think because I had completely drained this and there was no fluid in this tube going to the pump, it wasn't actually getting any more fluid down into the rack back here. So I ended up just putting a wrench on the belt tensioner here, loosening the belt, pulling the belt off, and then as I spin this pulley by hand, it was sucking fluid in through here and filling up my bottle. So you can see this stuff's pretty dark. Can't really see through it, but I'm getting clear fluid coming out of the hose now. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the hose out of here, hook everything back up, and then put the belt back on, start it up and run it and see what we got. Okay, so I still have it up on the jack. I just wanted pressure off the wheel so it'd be real easy to turn the steering wheel. But something I noticed right away is I can actually see fluid circulating through the reservoir. So I know that it's actually working. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it down off the jack and see how it does. Okay, so tires are on the ground, and see if I can do one finger. So I'm pretty sure that was the issue. I backed it out of the garage and went and just drove it down the street. Power steering seems to work fine. The pump is still a little noisy, so I don't know if that's just an issue with fluid isn't quite as full as it needs to be, and maybe it's still cavitating a little bit. So I'm gonna get some more fluid tomorrow, top it off, see how it does. But then it may need a power steering pump at some point. There might just be enough wear with it being starved of fluid for long enough that it may have just worn the pump internals. So I'll deal with that as the time comes. Right now, there's a lot of other things that I need to do to it. If you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them down below. I'll put a link to the Honda fluid and the reservoir down below. I'll try to find an OEM and an aftermarket. The aftermarket that I got did not have the internal baffle, and so you could see the fluid swirling around in there. I may actually try to clean up the original one just to see if I can get that screen clean, because I think having that baffle in there will maybe help performance of the power steering, just keeping a kind of constant fluid level. So I'll try to clean that one up a little bit. I may end up swapping them out, but if I do and it changes anything, I'll definitely leave something down in the description below. If you like what I do, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, we'll see you later.